good. We're live now, so we'll wait for some people to roll into here. So Matt and Greg, thanks for coming on Materials Exchange MX Live, mxlumber.com, or the digital way to buy and sell lumber. This is show 27, I think. Cheers,
Whoa,
Matt. Yeah,
27?
yeah. You know why it's 27? Because I just made that up, but I think
Okay.
I think it is about 27. So everybody, welcome. We talk about the lumber market, what you don't hear from a lot of the people that you may talk to. We kind of open it up and let people ask questions. So if you have any questions, put it up in the top bleep blopper up here. Tell us where you're from. If you have any questions, Nick will start us out by saying he's from Chicago. And we'll go from there.
First time caller, long time listener.
Nick from Chicago. It sounds like a blues song or somebody I'd roll dice with in a back alley somewhere.
Yo, Nick.
Nick from Chicago. Hey, Nick. Welcome. So let's ask Nick. Anybody rolling in yet, Nick?
Yeah, they're rolling in.
So we got some people rolling in. Got a lot to talk about. Did we ever find that West Fraser announcement out there that publicly came out? I mean, I've looked on I've hit the Google button. I can't find anything out there, but on their website can't find anything. What was what? We're taking a bunch of product off the market, but we're not going to really say how we're doing it. What was? I mean, it got announced. It got the board. It got the CME running. They're public.
Yeah.
What was it?
I don't know that anything was announced. Actually, there's a rumor that that's what's going to happen.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha.
There's nothing official. There's nothing official. Canfor came out and made it official. There's a 20% ongoing reduction in their production.
But for somebody to substantiate that rumor and talk about it so much, wouldn't they have heard that from somebody inside, or is this just a rumor still?
I thought it was just everybody in the industry just knew it. I could have sworn I saw an email with like an attachment on it.
And maybe there is one. Maybe there is one.
But I can't find it on the internet, which is unusual.
You can certainly find everything else on the internet. Yeah. Well, that'd be interesting. If anybody on here has any knowledge, if there's a news story, details of what West Fraser actually announced and what they're going to be taking off of production, that would be great to know, because I haven't got any details on it. But again, I'm not in the know and everything, so I wouldn't have any idea on that. Hey, buddy from Lincoln, Nebraska. Chum from Michigan. How you doing? Rick, good to see you here. But yeah, no, I'd like to know, because that had a substantial move on a lot of lumber prices last week when that rumor was out there. Let's just see if it's a rumor, if it's actually substantiated.
So,
yeah,
Ash, I pulled this out of the paper, and I thought it was like an interesting tidbit to share with our viewers.
Yeah.
Talking about how, I mean, obviously we know, home prices are up, and home sales are getting better now that there's more supply. The big number, I think home prices are up 18% year over year. But this was saying basically the rents for houses are going up very sharply, 13% year to date in the rental price of housing. Obviously, it's significant given that there's, several major publicly traded companies that now are in the home rental business, Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, etc. Investors purchased $87 billion in homes in the first half of 2021. Blackstone, Invesco, Goldman Sachs committed $11 billion to the sector recently. New houses meant to be rented now have accounted for 12% of all single-family home construction this year, and it looks like it's a growing trend. So, I felt it was interesting, so I thought I'd share it with everyone.
Yeah. Hey, James Breck just pull this up, Nick. It says West Fraser is curtailing 30% of BC production indefinitely. Fraser Lake, Chetwynd, Williams Lake, 100 Mile are the mills curtailing. Where's that information at, James? You've got something that actually says that? Because we haven't seen it.
I think I did. I think I had it on email last week.
Is it on an email?
Yeah, but I don't see it on the internet. So it could have just been an internal memo that they put out, to some people in the public that, leaked out, or they let it leak out on purpose, but they didn't publish it like on the AP or Reuters or anything.
Okay, so I would think that's a pretty big deal. I'm just curious how do they curtail that at those places? Do they just push the clutch in 30%?
I mean, they might have jacked production up 30% this year to date too, right? You got, we always talk about production creep, right?
Yeah, you said that too.
And James is talking about the same thing that I remember seeing, which was an email. So
yeah, James,
I remember seeing an email with West Fraser's letterhead on it with an attachment that spelled out what they were doing. But anyhow, I'm surprised it's not on the internet.
I'm surprised too. But James had an email from a trader, so I guess there's a bunch of stuff flying around. You know how our industry is. One person sends one thing, and then somebody adds their little stuff to it. So cool. All right, well, that was great on housing, Greg. Market roundup. We really took off. We ran up on the CME, let's say, almost to that short-term high we made in November 3 or 4 weeks ago or a month ago. And I mean, look at
yesterday's high in November was $695.
Yeah, and I was calling big buyers down in Texas that are on our platform and all that. They're like, hey, some of them are like, I haven't given out a cash PO in a month and we don't plan on it because we're still moving inventory around. Some people participated. I didn't see a lot of the big buyers participate as much as everybody on social media was chatting it up, like how this is the buy of a lifetime and it's no longer going down. Like, I agree with what you and Greg said. We probably put the bottom in 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I didn't see as much. Look, I'd love to see follow through, but I haven't seen it yet. I mean, am I missing something, Matt?
I mean, there has been. Well, here's what you're missing. For the first time in 3 months, people are losing money on shorts, right? So if you've been shorting the market since May for June and July and August shipment, even into September shipment, man, you probably made a killing the last 90 days, right? I mean, you probably made a lot of money on those shorts. But now some of the stuff that people took shorts on the last 2-3 weeks, they can't buy. The mills either got cleaned up enough on it and stopped wanting to sell it in the hole, or they just stopped making it because the value of that product got so bad that they're just like, well, let's find something else we can make, that doesn't sell for $270 mil.
Right.
And, for example, I'll give you a small example. We were selling green Doug fir 2-4 Standard Bearer at our sawmills for $250 to $270 here not too long ago. Guess what? They're making 4-buy now. They're making 3-buy instead of 2-buy. So if a mill has options, they're going to find other things that'll sell for a little bit more money and get a better return on the sawmill. That's what's happening now. Some things got too cheap. Investors started buying them up, and now they're not coming back to the market as quickly in terms of the production side of things. So that is, the market was ready for a rebound if you look at it from that perspective, where mills finally cried uncle enough and buyers finally came and said, yeah, let's take that, So round two that wants to come in and buy that same deal can't buy it anymore. Now they're paying a little bit more. That's where we are today.
Yeah, I hear that, Matt. All the other markets, so spruce seemed to get the big takeoff. Greg, what are you seeing in East Side and Eastern spruce and in Euro? Seems like a little bit difference on both of them, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, the market's bounced off the bottom. We will see probably pretty substantial up prints this week. Where last week, I think the only item, there's only a couple Western items printed up. Most other items printed, sideways to down.
Yeah.
You're going to see a substantial up print this week. I guess, my big question in the market in general is, when I look at the calendar, how high can the market really go in mid-September? And that's really what it comes down to for me. I think we've probably seen the lows in Western spruce for the time being. Does it mean we won't touch those lows again in late October, early November? we'll see. I think a lot has to do with, do these lower prices really get a substantial uptick in the end use consumption? That's a question. I mean, we still have all the supply chain issues that we had on the other products. So they're acting as a governor on the level of business. Business is really good. It was really good in August. It was really good in July. I mean,
the difference now is,
to Matt's point, we went in mid-May, we were $1,700, and in 3 months, we fell to, what was low trade? $350, Matt? $360?
Let's just say 400 to make it easy. We can all do that kind of math. That $1,300 reversal.
I mean, that's massive. I mean, you're like basically that you fell 10 times the average annual range for the product that it trades in.
Yeah.
$135 is the average range that the product's traded in the last 30 years. We fell 10 times that. Wow. Woo.
Well, we've never been there before. So when you reach, when you reach an unprecedented point in your commodity, you're going to have unexpected and unprecedented reactions to it, right? So we saw that. Now we're kind of back to normal. I mean, I think, we have a $100 rally. We went from 400 mil to 500 mil. I mean, that doesn't freak anybody out in our business. We've traded lumber at 400. We've traded lumber at 500. No big deal. So I think it's fine. I like the market. I think it's shaping up to be much more normal and healthy, which is, I think all of us would welcome that. I mean, have you guys been stressed out enough in the last year? You got stress from the government mandates. You got stress from a pandemic that none of us asked for. You got stress for having to work at home. You got stress from your kids being, if you have children, kicked out of school because they shut down the schools. I mean, you've had all kinds of stresses in your life. And then if you're in the lumber business, you had to deal with an unprecedented increase in price and drop in price over the last 12 months. So I'm happy to go back to normal. Totally happy.
It's crazy. Like, you see an $80, $70 move yesterday. You and I, 10, 15 years ago, that would take a year to make those moves. We see them in a day now. And
well, part of the problem is our industry has become really weak sellers in terms of the board. Okay, so if you want to talk about the makeup of the board itself,
yes.
10 years ago, a lot of mills were firing bullets into these rallies when they did, with the intention of shipping that wood. They were absolutely going to ship that wood into the board, and they planned on exporting it. A lot of the guys that made those decisions are gone. They've retired. They passed away. The company changed directions. They're not using that strategy anymore. So we don't have near as many people in our industry that are willing to fire bullets into the board when it's rallying as cash transactions.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
No doubt. And we talked about that 2 weeks ago. And shoot, we talked about it. Greg, you had a post, and we talked about it. Why aren't people a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, buying the board and selling it, or buying cash and selling it to deliver, even wholesalers? Why didn't other people do it? I think it's lack of knowing how to use the contract. And like you said, Matt, just people leaving too. And the other thing, I'll be with my thought, I've talked about this before. We've had so much consolidation. How many people are at these companies now willing to stand up and say, I'll run the futures position and I'll take the risk on it? I mean, we all know how hard it is. We've been at companies before. People are like, you're losing money on your futures position. You're hedged. You should get out of that and stay long your cash, or vice versa, right? It's like,
well, the other thing with consolidation, Ash, is that guys that used to have futures trading programs, they get absorbed by a larger company. The larger company has no program, and it just gets outlawed. Like, okay, we don't do that anymore.
Yep. Or they turn it over to somebody.
Ash, you brought up that that post. I was looking for someone to exit with. I ended up just rolling my September to November at $100. And I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. It used to be a great roll was, hey, if you could roll at $30 or $35, you were like, you thought you were like in heaven. $100. That's And then number two, I look back, how many times in the last 35 years has November lumber been a premium to September, let alone a massive premium?
Maybe once or twice.
Less than 5.
Yeah.
Less than 5.
And what was that premium when it was in the past?
Well, no, I'm saying that they usually trades at a discount.
Yeah.
Usually November is $20, $30 underneath. So, one of the things that I'm looking at even today is a guy that had money and had a place to go could buy September and sell November and pick up $80 a thousand.
What is
locked
that?
In.
What's that return annualized about?
It's it's a lot. It's a big number.
It's a lot.
So, I'm going to tell you that between now and next Wednesday, that spread's probably going to come in quite a bit because, there's a lot of smart people that have money that are going to figure that out.
Well, we've actually had people outside of our industry asking if they could come on our platform and look for liquidity, right? They want to get into a trade like that. These aren't your normal type of, this is people that don't have a sales floor. They're like, hey, we'd like to use you for liquidity if we can get in trades like that. It makes absolute sense, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and Ash, you and I talked about this is, transparency of pricing in the industry. It's it's one of the one of the things that the MX platform is designed is to help bring transparency to an opaque world of lumber. And it's interesting to me how many participants that you share with me that you talk to people and they don't like transparency. They like it that there's lots of mushrooms in the industry in the dark and fed a lot of shit, right?
Yeah. I'm supposed to be kindler and gentler and not talk about the way people don't want to do things. But I had a guy today send me back something. I tried Telpix before, so I'm not interested in being on your platform. I'm like,
welcome to the 1990s, Mr. Banks.
I'm like, that was 1999. I'm like, you're talking about something
the 1990s.
If you're talking to me about something 22 years ago, I love you, brother, but I don't want you on our platform because we probably aren't going to technologically. We're probably not going to, we're talking Atari right now versus PS3, right? So
you were really good on Pac-Man, weren't you?
Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah, Miss Pac-Man.
Miss Pac-Man.
That's a good one. Donkey Kong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been called that before.
But no, look, I think what this really helps, and what not to push MX too much, it helps the call around market. Like Matt did one last week to a guy with me, matched it up in Las Vegas that would have never bought this close to the chain before. He would have been 2 or 3 touches down the chain. And so now my thing is to people like Matt and other people, why don't you get more of your people on this? Because there's hundreds of those people out there, right? So it's just education, right? And it's good. We just keep pushing it. But I appreciate you bringing that. So Greg, you brought, what is nobody in the market talking about? That was one of your bullet points. What is nobody in the market talking about? Maybe we already hit a bunch of those already.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about a couple of them, and I guess this is, I wouldn't say no one's talking about this right now because Matt brought it up last week, but one of the most interesting things that we want to look for is over the next couple of weeks, does the resurgence of the home center demand continue at that pace? Does that happen? And because it's
getting better.
That's one. I mean, I almost think that was one of the the 3 pillars that knocked the market at the top. It was the delay of projects by multifamily. It was the delay of projects by big, small, medium builders, and it was the additional production available to the market that home centers weren't taking that tipped the market.
And Matt kind of clued us into that early in that move. And what I can tell you from the few mills that I deal with, that deal a lot with home center business, they had a bunch of 8-foot stuff 2 months ago, they don't have much 8-foot stuff today because that seems to be, that program seems to be kicked back in again, man. I don't know enough detail about it, but maybe you can substantiate that. But home center business certainly feels better.
It is better. It's back to what it should have been all along, right? It's back to normal. And because it's back to normal, and because the industry had to find new homes for all this excess 8-foot and 10-foot lumber that was being produced for the last 90 days, that stuff's been sold. And at the same time, there's a clamoring for more of it, because we're going into the busiest time of the year. So like right now, between now and Thanksgiving is the busiest time of the year for these big box stores to move product to the stores. And it's not really there for them. So they're doing everything they can. At the same time, the producers, ourselves would be an example, we're not super inclined to just jack up inventory again after what we just went through, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to do our job and we're going to fulfill our obligations, but are we going to run inventory way back to May levels? No, I don't think so. I think what you'll see is the effect of this increased demand will have a real impact on your 9-foot and 10-foot stud prices. Because in order to make more 8-foot premium, you'll at times have to cut back 9s and 10s. You'll just trim them in line at the sawmill. So if you're a 9-foot guy or if you're a 10-foot guy, that's a byproduct. I'm explaining what will happen to you over the next 30 to 45 days on 9 and 10-foot production. It'll go down.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. I'm already seeing 9 and 10. So 2 things that people are looking for today: 10-footers and some more 9-footers. I saw a whole bunch of 9s 2 weeks ago. A lot of those got cleaned up.
Yeah,
I know a couple smart people that did it. Clean some of those up. So let's kind of talk about what do you guys see coming up in the next few weeks here. I know historically, Greg, were you telling me that last 2 weeks of September?
I mean, this is one of my things that when I looked at November, how I felt like it was such a massive opportunity, just the raw numbers. But I mean, my challenge is that in the years of the business, the last 2 weeks in September are 2 of the historically weakest weeks of the year. The markets typically make a low 7 out of 10 years between the second, third week in October and the first or second week in November. So, have we bottomed out? Yes. Are we going anyplace special? Maybe not just yet. I could see these markets moving higher in the next, week or 10 days, and then adjusting back down to the levels we were at a couple weeks ago or last week or whatnot later in October.
Let's real quick over in the comments. Thanks. The Transparency MX is like what Pazload and Battery Tools have done for contractors. Thank you, Mark. And James Brecht is asking, is the mill consolidation resulting in better mill agility, i.e. responding faster to market demand with production adjustments? Matt, that's maybe a great question for you.
Well, I mean, if you have more mills under one roof, yeah, in theory that would help you. But you can make the counter argument too that being consolidated, let's say in fiscal year 2021. Let's say you just got way bigger. Let's say Hampton absorbed 5 more sawmills and just became a much bigger company. And we decided to pour gas on the fire back from January through June when the price of lumber was hitting records and we were making massive profits. So we're like, jack up that production, keep the money coming. And then we could be obstinate about shutting that production down all through the third quarter, right? So we actually talked about this. You and I and Greg talked about this. We weren't sure what the impact of all the massive profits in the first half of the year would be on mills' willingness to curtail. We argued both sides of it. And I think we can argue both sides of this question right here. I would say I'm leaning to the no. I don't really think it does help the agility. I don't think it does at all. I think when you have more of a hive mind mentality controlled by fewer people, your reactions are different and slower. I don't think they're faster and better necessarily.
Greg, you were what was your Greg bounced for a second. We'll bring him back up here.
We lost him.
That's okay.
Let's talk about overlooked and obvious. This is something that Greg would be talking about.
You're talking about Matt's comment here, overlooked, obvious, less log allocated?
No, I'm going to add to that.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is the Euro thing. Greg and I both do European lumber. We both import. And I'm seeing a lot less of it here in the fourth quarter, partly due to that they can get a better return domestically on some of the items that they would normally bring over here, the Europeans. A lot of it to do with just shipping problems and the cost of shipping and fatigue, just dealing with the ports. I mean, I'm sick and tired of dealing with the ports.
Yeah, you've said it's become more problematic getting wood in and out of there and dealing.
Yeah, my attitude towards bringing more in October, November, December is I don't really give a crap. I can buy all of this lumber domestically. Once the lumber becomes a real pain in my butt, I don't have to do it anymore. And it's become a pain in my butt. Getting this lumber in and out of the ports, dealing with USDA, dealing with reloads that may or may not have, any number of employees day to day due to COVID restrictions or people just walking off the job. So, I think the Euro thing is really gonna temper itself over the next 90 to 120 days to the point where it's going to help the domestic market. I really think it's going to be a big change that nobody's really talking much about. So I don't see that. I don't see imported lumber going way up here in terms of volume coming to America. I really don't. I think it's going way down.
Yep, that's a great point, Matt. Well, Greg bounced, but we're half an hour against it. It's just I wanted to highlight too. Matt Lehman will be on tomorrow with me at noon Central. We'll talk about his Lehman's Lumber Guide, what the framing index it looks like, etc. But one thing I do want to just say for whoever's on here, and also so I can pull this clip out of here, if you are not in the industry or in the industry and you want to, and again, this is for people to look at, if you want to look at that September-November spread, Greg's back. If you want to look at that September-November spread and you want to bring that into some reload points, we can help you be your liquidity on it. So if you're interested in knowing more how to take advantage of that $80 per thousand at a reload, I'd be glad to help you walk it through how you can do it and liquidate it on our platform. Greg, you wanted to talk a little bit, follow up what Matt said about the consolidation of mills. You said you agreed with him on that.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say consolidation of mills, consolidation of end users, and increased reliance on contract pricing. All of those things I've added to less transparency in price and more volatility in price, I believe. All of those things. It's a combination of them all. And I mean, to Matt's point about the stress, when a market goes up $1,000 and falls $1,000 in 3 months, there's the unintended consequences of that is the kind of my question. What's going to change in the next 3, 6, 12 months as a result of what we've been through? I can tell you that there's going to be some substantive changes. I'm not sure that I don't have the answer as to exactly how they're going to transpire, but there's always unintended consequences when there's things that happen so far out the norm.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
The guys that are smart enough to figure out what that's going to be ahead of time, email me.
I don't want to belabor something here. I had a good conversation with a friend yesterday from Texas, and the reason they added so many more contracts this year was because the mill order files were out so far. It kind of forced them into having to get into the market because they just didn't want to run out of lumber, right? And all of a sudden, and I saw this, it wasn't just, this year was more potentially, but I saw this years ago on panel products. mills would get this 16-week order file, and everybody would panic and the price would run up, and all of a sudden, next thing, that 16-week order file turned into a 2-week order file overnight because the contract business that they thought was going to get there from their big customers disappears. And it's hard, and I think maybe this is what Greg is saying, is it's hard as a small buyer or a mid-sized buyer or a large buyer to make decisions based on something that can disappear in the future. Like the wind, just poof, it's gone. That order file is gone, right? Because of something. But I get it on the mill side too, because they're working their ass off trying to please customers, and all they know is what they're telling them until they don't tell them. Does that make sense, Matt?
Well, that's exactly what happened in May.
Yeah.
So you have all these big industrial contract buyers saying, we want more, until all of a sudden we get a phone call in May going, hey, we want half. Hey, we want a quarter. Hey, we can't take this week's allotment. Our stuff is stacked up outside. We don't have any more space. So we literally had to just stop everything that we were doing on their behalf and change midstream to do something else.
Yeah.
We had to literally divert production away from what they were begging us for more product up until they weren't. And it happened like that. It happened quickly. Okay. It wasn't like, oh, we saw the tea leaves in March and then in April. It was like, it's like within a 2-week period, all hell breaks loose and people are running around going, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And so this is how it happens. And you can't plan for that. You just can't.
No doubt.
You learn from your mistakes, right? So the next time that this happens, when the price of lumber gets really frothy, which it will, in our lifetime,
for sure,
there's going to be another event like this that we had no control over. Will we remember 2020 and 21? I hope so.
Yeah,
there are lessons to be learned.
Look, I got to tell you guys, I hear feedback from people. I know you don't see it sometimes. You may not hear it. How much people love listening into this, because you guys really give two perspectives that I don't think most people really realize how good both of you are, and how smart both of you are, and how much you've seen, and how much you've not only seen, because making money is one thing, but we always learn our lessons from when we lose money, and we've all been on that. I know Matt and Greg, you and I, when we talk on weekends or whatever, we don't always talk about the money we've ever made doing something. We talk about that one time we got our asses kicked and the lesson we learned from it and what happened.
One time? One time?
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hey, if you're not losing a little bit of money
But the important thing is, that's why I think it's good for people to listen into this, because you guys are really like the forward observers that got paratrooped into the front lines, that are getting the cannon shot over you. You're calling stuff in because that's the world that you live in, right? And you accept that. But I'm just saying thank you for the information you guys give us, because you don't find this, you don't see this reading a periodical or from your buddy's buddy on a trading floor. This is like good rubber meets the road stuff.
Right. My disclaimer, Ash, is, whether it's in, things that we read that people put out, things that, like people say about the market, every one of us, Matt and I included, are all product of what our position is, what our point of view is. And what Matt and I both try to do is to a certain degree, either divorce ourselves from our point of view, or at least like neutralize it a little bit and be objective. And, part of the value to me in this format is forcing me to do that, because that's a check on, whether I'm just drinking my own Kool-Aid.
Well, I think another thing, Greg, that you and I both do is we're hedgers. So I can be long and short at the same time, and frequently I am. Probably, I bet 80% of the time walking around, I'm long something and short something.
True. True.
It's a normal mode of operation for me, and has been for 20 years. So, my position is neutral in theory, right? It's never completely neutral. I have an angle. Otherwise, I wouldn't still be here. I'd be broke, right? But
Yeah, I'm a complete neutral. You don't make any money.
Right. I mean, I can see both sides of this argument because I'm on both sides of the argument as we sit here and speak right now.
Yeah, and when the base is going out as wide as you're on, you're getting double. You're really on both sides of the argument. But
it's unprecedented.
Yeah, but it's crazy. Greg and I were talking about how far that thing. I'm like, it can't go out any farther, and then it does. You're like, oh, are you kidding?
I rolled some stuff at $56. I rolled some stuff at $50, $60 and like left money on the table. I rolled at $100. It was a gift. And to Matt's point, I could have put on new trades at $200.
Yeah.
I mean, so George, yesterday morning when it was like $675, I was like, well, wait a minute.
George Duncan over at YouTube asked, should I buy my barn material yet? I mean, if you're talking rakes and hay and that kind of stuff, I'm not in that commodity market. But if you're talking buying OSB or lumber, like I'll tell you what I told my brother-in-law the other day. He's like, should I buy sheets of OSB that I've been waiting for a year and a half to do my barn with? I said, yes. What? Yeah. Because if I'm not smart enough to pick a bottom, you as a plumber shouldn't try to pick a bottom in lumber prices either. You know, I think it's probably good. George just he's laughing, but no, that's true, George. If you look at you could do some shopping because some people that you normally buy from may still have some stuff they're trying to get rid of. But I think, George, that you should buy it. Matt Lehman, very rare to get honest, unfiltered, current opinions. Matt, feel the same way about you. Thanks. And Mark, the bruises are deep. Ashley Buckle. Yeah, you don't know how deep, Mark. They're deep, man. I'm going to stretch them out in a few minutes.
I got a 1 o'clock.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.